I could say I'm getting through this okay, and who knows, tomorrow I might break down and bawl again. You know, I've had many days of crying.
We still have over 100,000 families that are penniless, lost everything, have still to be compensated for their losses.
Basically the shirt off my back. Basically that's about all I own is the shirt on my back.
New Orleans today is a city of contrasts. Even on a rainy night, the tourists are starting to come back to the famous French Quarter, which experienced only minor flooding. In the upper-class sliver by the river, grand old homes went relatively unscathed. But everywhere else, the impact of Katrina is dramatic.
It was somewhat like a third world country before, and that was part of its charm. However, it's really like a third world country now.
Trailer parks are dotted throughout the suburbs of New Orleans.
I call myself a FEMA-lite. It means I live in a FEMA trailer. It's holy hell.
For David Smith and thousands of others who have nowhere else to go, this is home. How many of you living in this trailer, David?
There are 5 adults in this trailer. My son here, my daughter, her boyfriend, and her mother.
That must be a tight fit.
Oh, I'm telling you, you could turn around in there and bump into your own shadow. That's my hall bathroom, though, the light fixtures.
David Smith's house in the lower 9th Ward is beyond repair. A series of photographs provide a bitter reminder of the events that have turned his life upside down.
I cry every time I look at him, and I try not to look at him often, but that's all I got left of it. It's these nasty pictures.
Those who suffered the most as a result of Katrina were poor African Americans. In the days after the hurricane, as people waited to be rescued or to be provided with the basics of life, food and shelter, there were angry claims that the slow federal response was driven by racism.
Many of them were forced out of town at gunpoint. Many of them were at the convention center. They were flown, put in a plane, not told where they were going, and dropped somewhere in America, the majority of them. They find it's very difficult to come back because if you were a renter, if you were living in rental housing, there's nothing for you here.
And that's not likely to change anytime soon. Billions of dollars have been spent in the area, but local authorities still haven't announced a coordinated plan for reconstruction. But there is one pocket of hope in the upper 9th Ward. This is the Musicians' Village, funded by the non-profit housing group Habitat for Humanity. As the name suggests, the majority of housing will be offered to the city's musicians, who are working side by side on the site with volunteers from across the country.
Most of our families were living in rental units, and they're now going to be able to buy their own homes.
Jim Pate, the executive director of Habitat for Humanity in New Orleans, says it's all about bringing back the soul of the city, the music.
What we hope is that the old masters of traditional New Orleans music and the current practitioners and those who are developing new fusion forms will be able to come in. All New Orleanians, all displaced, will be able to return and maintain that rich musical culture we have.
"26-year-old Troy Sawyer was evacuated to Texas after the hurricane, but couldn't wait to come home and reform his band.
I felt it was my responsibility to come back and get my hands dirty, rebuild, and play music so the people can be uplifted.
The young musician is now helping build the community he will soon be a part of.
I have my own house. I actually would own my own house, and then gigs are coming back. You know, people are coming back, so it's looking very promising for me.
I knew I was flirting with the hurting. Now I'm certain.
If there is one person who embodies a deep passion for New Orleans and its music, it's one of the city's most enduring performers, Irma Thomas. Born in Louisiana 65 years ago, her career has taken her around the world, but the blues singer has always stayed true to her roots.
My heart is in New Orleans, and that's where I want to be.
Irma Thomas is determined to move back into her house as soon as she can and help New Orleans get back on its musical feet.
I don't have time to talk about doom and gloom. And the music part of me is the part that I'll use to be a part of the solution as opposed to a part of the problem.
For the past year, teams of scientists and engineers have been studying what went wrong and how to fix the problem. Ivor Van Heerden, who's written a book on the subject, warned for years of the potential for just such a catastrophe, and he's still issuing warnings.
A year down, and we have no better protection than we had a year ago. We have no plan for the future. We really don't have any monies earmarked to really do what has to be done.
Who do you blame for what happened?
Oh, I think the Corps of Engineers is entirely responsible for the failure of the levee systems. They not only were they badly designed in that they didn't consider the weak soils, they actually ignored some of the data, but secondly they built them 1.5 feet lower than they should have been.
So did the Army Corps of Engineers know that the system was not good enough?
Well, yes, everybody knew that the system was below grade in many levels. But the process for improving that system is, funding through the Congress and the administration and the Corps requesting such funds.
Post-Katrina, the funds came pouring in and the Army Corps of Engineers has been hard at work on the flood protection system. But Chief Engineer Walter Bormy still doesn't instill confidence.
I think we're better prepared than we were last year.
You only think so or you know so?
No, I know so. I know so, actually. But you would still experience surge heights that would overtop in certain areas, and until the system is brought to a higher level of protection, those areas will remain vulnerable to Katrina-level surges.
That's an ominous forecast for the tens of thousands of people trying to rebuild their lives and fearful of how they'll fare if it happens again.
I feel like my country has let me down. They gave me the false feeling of security that my home was safe from something like this, and I feel like the government really don't care.